Hello children, today we are going to study the story of a small family of a mother rabbit. The name of the chapter is The Tale of Peter Rabbit. There was a rabbit family who lived underneath the root of a very big fir tree. Children, fir tree is a big evergreen tree and we call it Devdar in Hindi. So in this rabbit family, there was a mother rabbit and her 4 children, namely Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail and Peter. Now children, let us read the chapter. Mother rabbit was going out to the baker's to buy some bread. Now my dears, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. Peter was very naughty. He ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes, and then feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. Now children, let us understand. One day, Mother Rabbit was going out to buy some bread from the baker. Before leaving the house, she instructed her 4 children to go and enjoy into the fields or down the lane, but not to go to Mr. McGregor's garden, because once their father had been over there and met with an accident. Now Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail, who were obedient children, they listened to their mother and went down the lane and started gathering blackberries. Now Peter, who was very naughty, did not listen to his mother's instruction and went to Mr. McGregor's garden from under the garden gate. As he reached the garden, Peter started enjoying. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans. He also ate radish. Peter had eaten so much that he started feeling sick. So he went to eat some parsley so that he could feel better. Children, parsley is a kind of a small plant which is used as a herb. Children, now let us read the second page. Round the end of a cucumber frame, he came across Mr. McGregor, who was planting cabbages. He jumped up and ran after Peter with a rake in his hand. "Stop, thief!" Peter was frightened. He ran, but he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one shoe amongst the cabbages and the other amongst the potatoes. He now ran faster on 4 legs, but unfortunately he ran into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. Peter shed big tears. His sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement. "Don't worry, Peter. Just pull hard." Peter pulled hard and he was free. Now let us understand. While Peter was looking for parsley, he reached the end of a cucumber frame where Mr. McGregor was planting cabbages. Now Mr. McGregor saw Peter and in anger he jumped up and ran after Peter with a tool which is used to gather leaves. A sudden attack made Peter frightened. He ran, but forgot the way to the gate from where he had come. While running, he lost his one shoe and in the cabbage area and the other amongst the potatoes. Peter, with his full speed, ran, but unfortunately he ran into the gooseberry net, where because of his large jacket buttons he got caught. Peter's jacket buttons were now stuck in the net. He started sobbing. Some sparrows, who were Peter's friend, flew closer to him and started encouraging Peter. Mr. McGregor saw Peter. He was about to throw a sieve on top of him, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his new blue jacket behind. Peter rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can filled with water. He suddenly sneezed and Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. Mr. McGregor tried to pull his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. Mr. McGregor was tired and went back to his work. Peter was out of breath. He sat down to rest. He looked all around. He found a door that was locked. An old mouse was running in and out over the doorsteps, carrying peas and beans. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head. Peter began to cry. Children, Mr. McGregor, who was running after Peter, saw him stuck in the net and made a plan to throw a sieve on top of him. Children, sieve is a utensil used for separating solids from liquids. In Hindi, we call it chalni. So, as Mr. McGregor was planning to throw a sieve on Peter, he with a fast speed ran from there, leaving his blue jacket behind. Now Peter ran into the tool shed and jumped into a can filled with water. As Peter jumped into the water-filled can, some water went into his nose and he sneezed. Mr. McGregor, on hearing the sneeze voice, rushed towards the voice and tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window and broke his 3 mud flower pots. Now, by this time, Mr. McGregor was tired and he went back to do his work, leaving Peter behind. Peter had also got tired. He sat at one place, looked all around and saw a door from where an old mouse was carrying food stuff. Peter asked the mouse about the garden gate, but did not get any reply. So he started crying. Peter tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he had lost his way. He came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very still. Peter thought it was best to go away without speaking to her. Peter went back to the tool shed, but suddenly he heard the noise of a hoe. He hid under the bushes as nothing happened. He climbed over a wheelbarrow and saw Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter quietly got down the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could. Mr. McGregor saw him, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Children, now let us understand. Now Peter once again started looking for the garden gate. He came across a pond where he saw a white cat staring some goldfish. On moving further, he saw Mr. McGregor doing some work in the onion garden. Suddenly, Peter saw the garden gate just beyond Mr. McGregor. Now Peter ran with full speed towards the gate. Mr. McGregor saw Peter and chased him, but Peter did not stop and finally came across the gate and was now safe. Mr. McGregor took Peter's blue jacket and shoes and hung them on a wooden stick in the garden to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down on the nice soft sand and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some tea for him. But Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. Children, now let us understand. Peter kept on running fast until he reached his home underneath the big fir tree. He was so tired that he fell down on the soft sand. His mother saw that Peter has once again lost his second jacket and a pair of shoes in 15 days. Peter was not feeling well, so his mother made some tea for him. Now Peter was lying on the bed, while his brothers Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail were enjoying having bread and milk and blackberries for supper. So this is how the story ends. Children, I hope you all must have understood the story. Do revise the lesson. Take care and God bless you.